Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have in the studio once again with us Glenn Redding, and you have many titles over the years, right? I mean, you
wore a lot of hats.
Yeah. I mean, you're not a person that when you got to be 16 years old, you had one job, and it you spent 30 years at that job. You've done police work. You've been an actor when you were living in California. You're involved in the local, I don't want to say politics, but the local Republican Party.
Let's go with government stuff.
Yeah, just government. You're a JP on the Boone County
Quorum
Court, right?
Yeah, yes.
Now, how long is that term? Is that a 2-year?
They're 2-year terms. Everything else is 4-year. Your county sheriff, your county judge, president, all those things are 4-year terms. In Arkansas, they left the justice of the peace 2-year term. So we run every 2 years. We have to come back and file again and rerun. We just got sworn in January 1st. And, of course, we have to run again in 2 years. So the county judges and sheriff, people wanting to run for those offices, they're kind of getting ready to come out probably in the next year, toward the end of the year, to get out and campaign for several months before the next election.
Yeah. What was your motivation to run? I mean, was there things in the county that you wanted to change, or just?
You know, we've talked about being active in the community and wanting to do something. I had been so active as a police officer for 20 years in Harrison, and then I retired. I built houses for about 6 years, built about 30 homes, and I just jumped in it and had 3 crews going, and I really liked it, but I kind of missed the law enforcement. And so in 2002 or 3, I went ahead and applied for 2 state jobs and got them both, so I took one and went to work for tobacco control. Well, I did that for 12 or 14 years and got into smuggling of tobacco, and of course, when you get into that, you get into the terrorist watch list, because those type of people are doing that. And I started working with the FBI and Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Just let people know you weren't doing the smuggling.
No, I was investigating smuggling.
Oh, okay.
And the money was going overseas. So the JTTF recruited me, and I worked with the FBI and Joint Terrorism Task Force out of Little Rock and Memphis, and did that for about 12 years, along with Arkansas Tobacco Control. And then I had a head-on accident. So 6 years ago, it was okay, law enforcement, construction, law enforcement, and head-on accident. What am I going to do? And I've got somebody else's disc in my back and somebody else's disc in my throat, and metal plates and screws and different things.
Wow.
So I'm kind of limited. I can't work hard like I did building houses. Law enforcement, you got to be in physical shape to do that, and I really can't do that because of my back and my neck and stuff. So I wanted to be active in the community. So after I healed some, I thought, what can I do that's not going to physically wipe me out, but I can use my mind perhaps.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that guy that sits on the couch that just retired and gained 300 pounds and has a heart attack and doesn't get to enjoy his grandchildren. Yeah. So I was with a friend one night, and he said, hey, why don't you run for Quorum Court? You know, you're retired and you like to be active in the community, and they do a lot of things. And I thought, well, you know, I had thought about running for city council. And Magnus and I flipped the coin, and either I won or lost, I'm not sure, but he ended up running for city council.
Yeah, okay.
So I went ahead and filed for Justice of the Peace for my district, which is Southwest Harrison, and there's 11 Justices of the Peace in Boone County. There's 11 different districts. Those districts are figured by population, not by area. So you might have one Justice of the Peace that has 10 times the amount of acreage that I have, but we all have the same amount of people almost. See, they divide it by population. So all 11 of us are divided by the population. In the old days, you couldn't arrest somebody and bring them all the way to Harrison, you know, from out at Diamond City. It'd take 2-3 days to get them out and get them back. Okay. So they had a constable, and that constable would make that arrest, and they'd bring them before Justice Court. And that's what the Justice of the Peace was. They'd go ahead and sentence them or do whatever. And if it was a major crime, they would bring them to Harrison, and they'd hold a regular trial for a murder or something violent. But a lot of cases were handled through the justices, property disputes and other things. So I got interested in that, and I thought, well, that's kind of neat. I want to see what they do. Well, they've got an $8 million budget. So every year we have to budget that $8 million and make sure that your money is going on things that are going to benefit Boone County. Not benefit a Justice of the Peace for personal gain, but benefit the people that live here in Boone County. That's what we're here for. So we budget the $8 million budget for all the county offices, the sheriff's office and all that. We make ordinances, laws. We're the legislative branch of the county. You have the state representatives in Little Rock doing your state legislation. In the counties, there's 75 counties in Arkansas. every county has justice of the peace. And that quorum court, we meet twice a month for official meetings. We have a meeting to review what's coming up. Like last night, we had committee meetings. We've got 5 committees, and that's on roads, on finances, on anything involving the county. We have different committees that will look into an issue. If you brought one to us and say, I got a problem with this, what can we do?
Yeah.
We get that to the right committee, they look at it, and then they'll propose an ordinance before the entire quorum court, and we'll vote on it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how the county system works.
Gotcha.
But in the meantime, I got interested in politics, and I had gone to Washington as a justice of the peace. So I got to meet Pence at that time. Our vice president came in on the meeting.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But it was a meeting of counties between Oklahoma and Arkansas, and you could send a representative, and I represented Boone County. And I went out there 2 or 3 years ago, and the main speaker that came out and spoke to us is now running for governor, of course, and it was Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And so she came out and talked with us. Sonny Perdue, that was the agriculture secretary, came out and talked with us. Almost every head, health department, every one of them came out and spoke to the different counties and said, what can we do for you? Here's our phone number. Here's our email. What can we do for you? And that was pretty neat to do that. And in the middle of it, here come the vice president. Pence came walking out.
Cool.
And so we got to meet him, and I thought that was great. And when we left, they handed us a list of phone numbers and said, this will cut the red tape. There's phone numbers and emails for the people in different agencies. If your county needs something, call us, and let's see what we can do. So that impressed me. So I came back home, and Asa Hutchinson was going to run for governor. And so I got a phone call, will you be my campaign manager? And I said, sure. So for Boone County. So I was his Boone County manager, and that got me more actively in campaigning and elections, because the Justice of the Peace campaign isn't a real big one. So supporting the governor, somebody running for governor, that was pretty interesting to me, and I really enjoyed doing that. And we put up signs and wore shirts and talked to people, and I supported Asa when he was running for governor because I thought he had a lot of good ideas for the state.
Yeah.
And I'd worked with him when he was a federal prosecutor, and I worked for the Drug Task Force, so we'd been together in criminal cases.
So you've actually got you have a lot of contacts, know a lot of people on a first name basis. So I mean, you could set us up with an interview with the governor or Huckabee that's going to be running, right?
That could be done, probably.
Could be done. All right.
That could be done.
I mean, that would be awesome.
You know, that there's 75 counties, and a lot of people want to hear her talk right now.
Oh, I'm sure she does.
And of course, there's 2 others running for governor also. So there's 3 people that today, and there may be more that announced.
Yeah, you were mentioning about that where there's no red tape and you got a direct phone line or email. You know, of course that was good for the Trump era, but now that Biden's in there, probably all that stuff has changed.
Don't have a clue.
Yeah.
See, I mean, I'm with the Republican committee, and we meet the last Monday of every month at Western Sizzlin. And I encourage people to come out and look at something like that, because you've got a voice.
Yeah.
Now, your voice can be heard at City Council, it can be heard through the Quorum Court, or it can be heard with the Democrat Party or the Republican Party, either one. I'm sure they do the same thing.
Yeah.
But the Republican committee meets once a month. You don't have to.
Now, do you have to be put on an agenda to have your voice heard?
For the Quorum Court?
For anything?
Well, for the Quorum Court, you generally do. At the end of our Quorum Court meetings, so the judge will ask, is there anybody in the crowd that has anything to talk? Normally, we want it on the agenda so that we know what's coming up. And we can be prepared to answer your questions and help you with whatever you're wanting to do.
But it'd probably be the best thing to do if someone is in your district to contact you and say, hey, I've got this issue I'd like to talk about. Can I talk about it to you, or should I bring it to the Quorum Court? I mean, then you would determine that, I would assume.
People call me all the time from different parts of the county. You know, my area is mostly Harrison. I got a little bit that runs in the county, but most of mine is Southwest Harrison. People will call me from Lead Hill or Bergman or somewhere, and they say, I've got this problem, and we'll discuss it. And then what I do is I refer them to their JP, or I actually call their JP and say, hey, you've got a constituent that didn't know who to call.
Gotcha.
And so they'll talk to him and see what type of issue it is, and if they need to bring it before the court, they'll bring it to a committee meeting first. We'll discuss it and see what we think we ought to do as a committee. Then we'll forward that to the full Quorum Court, and maybe in a form of an ordinance, and we'll go ahead and discuss that and either pass it or not.
Now, is this your second term? Your first term?
No, I'm actually in my 3rd term.
3rd term, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we run every 2 years, and no one ran against me the last 2 times.
Is there a limit on how many terms you can run?
No, there's no term limit on Justice of the Peace. You know, perhaps there should be. I know we need them in Washington. We need term limits.
Oh, absolutely.
So, you know, but locally, no, there's not. And
there's too much going on when you leave your hometown. there's a cesspool of stuff going on. There's
Oh, yeah.
there's the lobbyists and so many different ways to sway you from thinking the right way.
And even here locally, we have people come to us that want money, and they look at the Quorum Court because we have an $8 million budget. But there's a state law in Arkansas. A lot of people may not be aware of it, but we're required to not run a deficit by state law. So the Quorum Court has to approve a budget that's in the plus. Or it could be zero, but it can't be below
okay.
that.
I gotcha.
As a matter of fact, you can't spend 100% of the budget. You can only spend.
It'd be nice if the United States would do that.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Because every year.
They set the law for us. Why can't we?
Every year
can't they
we're in the
follow?
black. So what we have to do is be careful about raises because those are permanent.
Yeah.
So when
Right.
we give a raise, it's like next year they're still making that. The
Yeah.
next year they're making more. It just keeps going up. You have to be careful about thinking in the future with
Yeah.
that. And we try to give everybody a raise if we can.
Yeah, and it makes it bad sometimes when you decide to say no to something. Someone else says, "Well, this is the reason why you said no," and it's really not even the truth.
No, and you just have to be real careful how you do that. We're dealing with people's lives, and we're trying to feed our county employees, and
Right.
we've got a great bunch of county employees, whether it's the clerk's office, the sheriff's office, the judge's office, the road crew. A lot of good people in Boone County. A lot of them been working there for a long time and doing a good job. So we try
You don't
to
want to
reward
end
all
up
of
like Flint, Michigan. I don't know if there's a Netflix show. It's called Flint Town. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like 10 episodes, and it goes through the 1 year of how Flint has to deal with local government and the police department and where the money comes from and campaign promise. It's if you want to get a good inside look at a town that's rubbing two pennies together, that would be what I would recommend to watch. But
We're very fortunate in Boone
Yeah.
County. One, we have a lot of good people here, and it's a good community. The second thing is that we've got a budget that's been stable for several years. We've been able to do that.
well, you have good people in there to keep an eye on the budget.
Right.
That's where it all starts.
Our finance committee starts looking at it about now for next year. I mean, we're already looking to see, what we're going to have to spend money on. We check constantly with our treasurer to find out. I'm on the finance committee, so I know about that. And we check constantly to make sure that we're not going over budget or spending too much money. And sometimes things come up where you do have to spend money. So one of our concerns is in 5 or 6 years, we're going to have to vote again on the jail tax. And see, we get about $1.2 million on that every year. And it's a small amount of money that you pay on that, but it generates a lot.
Yeah.
If that doesn't pass in 4 or 5 years, where we're going to have the money to run the jail? Because it costs $1 million to run the jail, and that's what we run the jail out of right now.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is for the last 6 years, 5 years, we've been putting $500,000 back in reserve out of our budget. So we're running a straight budget in the black, and we're still banking $500,000 a year. So we've got $2 million back now, and I've got an appropriation budget for this next Tuesday, where I'm asking the full quorum to put another $500,000 back in reserve, and that'll give us either $2.5 or $3 million in reserve.
But that will cover in case it doesn't.
I want that there just for an emergency. I don't want to use it for this if the county sales tax doesn't pass, but we may have
Okay.
to until we come up with another solution. That will run out. So that's not a good solution.
Right.
At $1.2 million a year to run the county jail,
Yeah,
you're talking about, if we had $4 million in there, you're talking about less than 4 years it'd be broke. So we're gonna have to. I hope the people will continue that. They're already paying that tax. I hope they continue that one
Yeah.
tax. And I'm not a tax guy. I'm taxed to death as it
Yeah.
is, and I like to not pay any more taxes than what I have to.
Right.
Well, people are interested in the government, and I think they're interested in what our local representatives do from time to time. Now, we do on our channel have the city council meeting twice a month. It's every second and fourth Thursday. And we're actually, I don't know if you knew this or not, but we're in talks on getting the Quorum Court televised live
I
twice
think
a
that'd be
month on
great because
Tuesdays.
that way the people can see what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
I watch the city council or I go to it. Before the COVID, I went to it. And people would say, why are you going to the city council meeting when you're on a quorum court? And I said, whatever happens in the city affects the county and vice versa.
Sure it does.
So I go to all the city council meetings that I can, or I at least watch them so that I'm aware of what the city's doing. Because my constituents actually live in the city, although I represent everybody in the county. You know, my actual constituents are the southwest part of Harrison. So whatever they're doing is affecting everybody that either votes or doesn't vote for me out of my district. So I want to know what's happening in the city. I talk to the mayor or the chief of police on whatever issue we have. If we're trying to raise money for the probation officers so they can continue doing probation, putting people on probation. I get with the chief of police, and we worked out a deal between the city and the county on that to help supplement the finances for that.
That didn't happen in years past. The county was here and the city was here, and they didn't talk to each other, and there was a lot of.
We've got a lot of really good people. The sheriff worked at the city as a dispatcher for me at one time. The chief of police worked at the city as a patrolman for me one time. So both of those men had worked in the city. All right. Now you got the chief of police, who was a retired trooper, Chris Grady, is the chief. Tim Robinson is the sheriff at this time. They both have knowledge of how the city works.
The city and the county.
I think that's probably a big benefit.
Then they got people like me that have been on search and rescue and other county things along with working for the city. So we all know who each other is and who to contact when we have a problem, but they're working together on everything. They're working together on prisoner overload. They're working together on any issue that comes up with the city or the county, just like these two guys that they arrested for murder down at Bellefonte the other day, just like they had another murder out at Bergman. And the Bergman chief notified the county notified the city set up, suspects came by that did a murder in Bergman. They were able to go ahead and stop them and make that arrest and work with the county. Everybody worked together. And that's the way we did do that some back in the 70s when Gordon Webb, we put together a drug task force and we used county, city, and everybody together. Sometimes the upper echelons don't get along and you have a problem with the council or the quorum court or the mayors or the judges. That's not happening right now. It seems like the mayor, the county judge, the quorum court, and the city council are all working together to move things forward. And I can't imagine it being any better than that.
Yeah, well, maybe that'll stay status quo in that respect. And it would be nice if the United States government would look at that and adopt that policy too.
Dan, I don't get it. I don't get it when you have a section of group where they're the council, the quorum court, and they bow up and you don't get anything accomplished. How does that happen? We don't always agree. There's 11 of us, and we all have our own thoughts on things. Our quorum court doesn't always agree, and we don't always agree with what the city's doing, but we voice our opinion and then we go on. So out of those 11 members, like at a committee meeting, there's 5 on a committee. Those 5 people, maybe 3 out of 5 will agree and 2 won't. Well, those 2, they may not get what they wanted, the other 3 do. But it goes forward. And we're all wanting to do what we think's best for the community. So
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, we don't fight
afterwards. It's not about personal gain. It's about
no, it's about doing what's right.
Well, hey, we appreciate you coming by. Are you talked out? Yeah, I think you could talk another hour, don't you think?
You know, I've never had a problem with that. I could go on for as long as you want to. That's part of being an instructor. You know, I spent years as a police instructor, and you don't ever forget about anything to talk about. You've always got something.
I got to keep it going.
Well,
Well, come back and let us know how the quorum court's doing and anything's going on in the community that we need to know about. We're always here to pass that information along.
Well, come visit that at a quorum court. Come visit us there, and come visit the Republican committee when it meets at Western Sizzlin the last Monday of the month at 6 o'clock. Just drop in. Anybody can come to those. And you can get in and see how their committee's working.
Once a month?
The last Monday of every month at Western Sizzlin.
Last Monday of each month.
It's at 6 p.m. So all different kinds of people are in there, and they're
and bring your appetite, right?
Yeah, I eat before I go. I mean, I eat there.
Yeah.
I eat before the meeting. But I eat there at Western Sizzlin because they got a great menu.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Who's up? Who else?
Wanda Massengale and
Dana. And
Dana.
Noah.
Noah.
Noah and Dana.
From the Ozark Humane Society. Stay with us.